Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the famed Blue Note Jazz Club here in the heart of Greenwich Village here in New York City. Blessing the band stage this week at the Blue Note is multi-instrumentalist, trumpeter, educator, and innovator Nicholas Payton. This week he's performing music from his upcoming record featuring the legendary Lenny White as well as Buster Williams, which you'll see tonight here on the Pace Report. Now, his show is very interesting in that he continues to pay respect to the legends of Black American music. In fact, he plays clips of artists ranging from the great Jerry Allen to the great Miles Davis and Max Roach in his shows before he plays, and he also gives monologues and history of what they've contributed to this music. Tonight I had a chance to sit down to break bread with Nick to talk about this upcoming record, why he chose Buster and Lenny to perform on this new record, and he pays respect to one of his heroes, the great Herbie Hancock. And we also sit down and talk about his ongoing being on the front lines to talk about why this education is very, very, very important post-COVID. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of the upcoming music from Nicholas Payton featuring Buster Williams on bass and the great Lenny White on drums. Here on the Pace Report, here in New York City. Payton, as always, it's always great to sit down with you. These last 2 weeks here in New York City have been whirlwind. Mm-hmm. Last night, revived big band, Igmar Thomas. Also, you did a week stint with the legendary Buster Williams as well as the great Lenny White for an upcoming project that's coming out in November.
Right.
Tell everybody about this project.
Well, it's been in the making for a while. Conceptually, I've wanted to do something with Buster and Lenny, but the last time we played together was, I guess, 2014. So basically, this album is a trio album with myself on keys and trumpet, and it's kind of a veiled Herbie Hancock tribute. We do a lot of music either written by or associated with Herbie, and therefore Miles Davis as well. Buster and Lenny are a part of that orbit of musicians coming out of the Miles Davis lineage. So I just wanted to pay deference and tribute to them in their work. I also wrote tunes for both Buster and Lenny, their tribute to each of them. I think for me, at this point of my career, it's important for me to record with as many of the elders, my elders, as possible. I passed up a lot of those things early on in my career because my primary focus was recording with my peers and making albums with my own band. So I didn't get into the whole thing with a lot of the young lions, so to speak. We're recording with a lot of the elders and doing these all-star kind of projects. My whole thing was, if I have a band with me of my peers and we're out on the road, 9 months out of the year, it makes sense for us to go in the studio to chart our development and our growth and what we're working on. But lately, in the last 5+ years, starting with the album I did with the Washingtons, Peter Washington, Kenny Washington, on Smoke Records. That was the first of this series. And the last one was with Ron Carter and George Coleman, also 2 other Miles Davis alumnus. Kareem Riggins was on drums, and then this one, which is tentatively going to be called the Couch Sessions. And the concept behind that is music as therapy, and letting the music wash over you and heal you. So basically, come step into our musical office, sit on our couch, and let your burdens down.
That's heavy, because a couple things I want to piggyback on what you said. First thing that I admire, you and another one of your contemporaries, Jeremy Pelt, you guys are taking the now with the elders and presenting their history to move forward to keep this legacy going. Him with him writing Griot, and you on the band stage, you sampled and play samples of the elders, from Jerry Allen to Buster to Miles, Wayne Shorter. The people leave the audience not only with just great music, but they get a history lesson as well. Mm-hmm. Is that your intent with this?
Absolutely. And no better way than to impart that than to use the actual voices of the people who preceded us, who have established this great art form. So,
yeah, you hit me real hard when you laid Jerry Allen on me, because she's a sister, I believe, especially in another 5, 6, maybe 10 years from now, people are going to go back and start re-examining where she left her mark here in Black American music.
I certainly hope so. Yeah, she's a force on so many levels, compositionally and improvisationally.
Yeah, yeah. Why did you decide to do a tribute to Herbie? What was so special to Herbie for you?
Oh, he's my favorite pianist. Also composer, and he's one of the people who I studied quite intently and who really shaped a lot of my harmonic DNA, picking out Herbie's voicings and how he approached the piano, particularly with Miles Davis, was really a big part in opening my ears up to how I hear music to this day. So yeah, just wanted to pay that acknowledgement in a more obvious way. I mean, really, Herbie has been a part of my music since I started making records. But this is a more obvious, direct way to tribute him and honor him by playing his music.
Nick, you've been in this game for a while, and you've interacted with a lot of the heavyweights. What are some things that Herbie imparted on you as a musician and as a person?
I think his connection to the history, being very rooted from his upbringing in the south side of Chicago and coming out of that whole piano tradition. But a great thinker and a risk taker, not afraid to back himself in a corner and figure out how to paint his way out of it. He has a beautiful approach to being liberated artistically in that way. And particularly like when he struck out on his own with the Mwandishi band, which was just so heavy. And all of them, like I don't think there's been a group perhaps ever in the history of music, a band that had that kind of kinetic synergy amongst the members. They were like one very complex organism, the way they moved and the way they thought. They had a very telepathic way of communicating with one another that I don't think has existed in another band that I know of. So to just try to tap into some of that, and Buster Williams was a member of that band. So I want to conjure those energies and to be a part of the great things that have transpired over the history of that music. And there's no better way to approach that, to touch that, than to be associated with the people who've actually paved those roads, And it's important to do, while they're here, and also to give these artists their flowers and their props and their recognition while they're here.
Yeah.
Bust it. Bust it.
Bust the move, bust the rhythm.
Lenny's career really took off with Miles Bitches Brew, but also Red Clay,
Yeah.
Freddie Hubbard, which was a big record for Freddie and put Freddie in a very different stratosphere musically.
Absolutely.
Lenny has, and he's walked the line too, like Herbie. He's done R&B. He's done
Fusion.
fusion.
Part of that,
He's done it all.
Straight ahead. He was a big part of the whole Queens thing with, Bernard Wright and Marcus Miller and Tom Brown. He was kind of like the elder brother of all those cats. So yeah, he's had his hand at the forefront of so many great developments in music since he's been on the scene as a teen. And Red Clay was my introduction to Lenny. And that was a very pivotal album for me, one of the first when I really started studying this music seriously. So to have him a part on another project of mine, because he was actually on my first album that I did on my own label, Payton Records, BAM Live at Bohemian Caverns.
Right.
But Vicente Archer was on bass then. So, but yeah, Lenny, he's his own orbit, and he's really the only living artifact of that style of drumming that comes out of those turbulent 60s, like that certain style. Of course, Jack DeJohnette as well, but that he has his own thing. But Lenny is really a singular force in the way that he approaches his instrument and the way that he plays. And if you can tap into how conversational he is, I just have a lot of fun playing with him because he listens so much and he knows how to sort of dot your I's and cross your T's and to complete your sentences and phrases in such a way, much in a tradition like Art Blakey used to do, where it's not just a drum thing, it's very compositional, it's very orchestral in the way he approaches his instrument as a holistic thing, not just a set of drums. So that's always inspiring and fun to hit with Lenny.
Going back into the elders, I want to bring up something that was very important to you as a musician growing into it. You despised jazz.
Yes.
You despised it. You despised it growing up, and you didn't get into the art form until you heard a record, Miles Davis +4 with George Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that record that kind of opened up I guess we could say Pandora's box to what has led to where we are right now. What was about George Coleman and that record with Miles that you were like, this is just different and bizarre, but also make you want to go out and study the elders?
I think it was just one of those visceral things. It just hit me in such a way, almost like I was hearing music for the first time. And I was hooked from it before Miles and them even came in, because I put on side 2 of that album, which is the title track 4. And from Tony's 8-bar drum intro, I was like, I want to do this the rest of my life. And it was just that clear for me. Just the sound of that album, it's one of the greatest, most pristine recorded albums, and also the way they're playing, obviously. Everyone at the top of their craft. and playing songs that are mostly standards that we recognize, but in the mirror of that, we can see really who they are because of the chances they're taking with it and the modifications that they make rhythmically and harmonically to this very well paved lineage of the standard songbook. So yeah, that album still remains to be one of my go-tos as far as like really tapping into the foundation of what has shaped me, you know, my whole life musically.
I'm gonna ask you a really crazy question. What do you think Miles Davis's band would be like had he not chosen Wayne Shorter, but kept George Coleman for that core for those 5 or 6 years? What do you think the music would have been like, and how do you think it would have changed, or what anything would have changed?
That's hard to say, but I believe everything happens for a reason, and I feel like George doesn't get the proper credit he deserves for establishing some of those ideas that we associate with the Wayne Shorter thing, like all of those turnarounds and chromatic modulations and so forth harmonically. George started that.
That's right.
So that window was already open when Wayne stepped in and obviously took it to the next level. But when we look at the history of music, it's really like a relay race, and artists pass the baton to one another. Sometimes in a very obvious way, sometimes it's more elusive. In light of George Coleman, I think because the band sounded so clean and so perfect in a way, people mistake it and made it look so easy. They made it sound and look so easy. People discount it as not being as edgy and as daring as it actually was. So propers to Big George for opening that door, because he really began to set the blueprint for what that is termed the second great Miles Davis quintet. But I feel like that's always been a slight to Big George, because,
right.
because he was very instrumental in what that band would do once Wayne joined. So.
And there's a great record live at Newport where he's playing with Miles. I think a lot of people still sleeping on it. I think George was one of those guys that, in the idiom of this music we're talking about, you're right, he doesn't get the credit he deserves. And I think too it's because there were so many other saxophonists that were fighting too. You had Joe Henderson. You had some other heavyweights that were doing some very different things at the time. Would that be a close assessment of why George didn't get the recognition that he deserved?
I think because he's so harmonically advanced, that's just not something the average person may pick up on. He's more like, in that sense, probably a musician's musician, because maybe only musicians can dig how heavy the things, how he set up his devices work. That's my guess. But there's no way to determine why people sleep on certain things and others. Like, who knows, But I think, as a testament to his artistry and his convictions, he kind of doesn't give a fuck either.
Yeah.
It hasn't stopped him from whatever, and he's still at the top of his craft.
He sure is.
So, as an artist, you can't really get too wound up in what people get out of your output or not. Sometimes they get certain things, sometimes they don't. And I don't think one should do it out of gratification for recognition. That's not why we do it. We do it because, one, we can, if we can, and it's a blessing to be able to do it. And you just put it out there. And what reaches people when is not really your decision. And it's almost like having a child. I mean, this child comes through you, but you don't own it. That child has their own voice in life, and how they interact with the world once they're released from you, or, that's their trajectory, So it's not really up for you to say what people should take away from what you put out there. It has a life of its own, and it's not your choice at that point.
Facts. Nick, you sitting around some very important heavyweights, man. How do you feel about recording this part?
Man, everybody
Listen, please.
Watch. My weight is cool. Heavyweight.
Was that a dig at me?
No. Nick, these guys right here brought some very important contributions to Black American music, and
Absolutely.
you recorded with these guys. What is it that you've learned from these guys in this process and playing on the band stage?
Well, I mean, before I even met either of them, I learned so much from them. I mean, I used to be at home shitting with records, pretending I was playing in bands with them and projects and so forth. I never dreamed I'd meet them, much less play with them. So to be able to share the stage with them and have them even agree to be a part of something I'm doing, it's a dream come true. Really. So.
Lenny.
I never knew that. Oh shit.
No, really.
Yes, sir.
Man, both of you cats, man. Like, grew up studying and listening to you intensely. So, no bullshit. Absolutely.
No shit. Remember
Come on,
Putney?
Buster.
Remember Putney Swope?
Yeah.
No shit.
Well, your version of Limbo with Miles is how I learned the changes because I couldn't hear the harmony on the one that made the record. But
Really?
the one you played on, I was like, oh, that's what the chords are. So
They mess with it. They mess with it.
So-
Yeah. I said I better play right
And then
now.
my mom was a big Return to Forever fan. So
Really?
I've known her chick. In fact, I saw y'all reunion tour in Phoenix. It was like
Wow.
06 or 07.
Yeah.
Man, y'all was burning. Y'all sounded. I didn't catch y'all back then, but just from what I heard, y'all sounded better than back then.
Yeah, no, that was
crazy, man.
that was actually Chick had written some music that has never been released. I have actually a stick in the car. I was listening to it the other night. That's some of the best music he ever wrote, man.
Wow.
I'm telling you, it was really, really intense.
I like to check that out.
It's really intense. I mean, from a compositional standpoint, and like, you know, the testosterone was like flying, and everything was at 9,000 miles an hour. Like, you know, but it was really, really, really good. Really good music.
Yeah, those are dope too.
Really good music.
Lenny, were you playing with your in bare feet in those days?
No, not those days. No, but I did do that.
Mhm.
I did do that. But yeah, no, that was. I listened to it the other day, man. Quite honestly, I
Let me
don't
hear
know.
that, man.
Oh yeah, no. Quite honestly, I don't know how we played that fast. I mean, like, I don't even know what the purpose of playing that was. All I know that people were just going,
Right. But you just said it, man. What was the purpose? Why did we do that? I know
because we could.
Yeah.
You know, that's the
because you
reason.
could.
That's the reason why you do it, because you could. You go, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah.
Right.
That's funny. Stan said the same shit. Because we could.
Yeah, I mean that's the only reason why. I mean, there's no, you know, honestly, it was great music and it served a great purpose, but it was athletics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was really athletics. I mean, I listened to it and said, why do we play so fast?
Y'all 20-something-year-olds.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
Yeah, I
some
mean-
20-something-year-old shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was pretty intense. Yeah.
Your footprint, though, man.
You know, it was
And Buster, the stuff y'all did with M1D shit, I still think that's a special world unto itself.
Well,
And the
it was,
universes y'all created, man, like magical. I don't know if any band has had that, to my knowledge, that kind of telepathic synergy together collectively. Like I've never.
And I played with them.
Oh yeah, I didn't.
And
know
then Eddie Henderson did a record called Realization.
that. Oh yeah.
And I played on
It was the
one
band.
of the cuts
Yeah, yeah.
with that whole band.
That's right.
It was me and Jabali. It was really great, man.
Timbales.
No,
Jabali.
Very hard. But you know, man, you know, we got to the point where, you know, whatever the sacrifice was, we don't want to play nothing we played last night. You know? I mean, I'd go to work and it was like, you know, I'm not going to play, like on that Coleman, I ain't going to play no Roots tonight. You know? And you know, and you know, cats started dropping acid. And we was at the London House, man. Now, why they booked us at the London House, I don't know. The first set was the dinner show, 6 o'clock. You know, and so Jabali had dropped some acid, and Benny Maupin. Everybody, I was always afraid of acid. I didn't try acid. I was afraid of that.
So the name was
Do you think you should have been?
Huh?
Do you think you should have been?
I think it was a wise move. But we get to the gig, and Benny Maupin's not there. So, you know, but we got to play the first one. And you know, Herbie always had his Rhodes, and I don't care how late we are, Herbie's got to take the top off the Rhodes and tune up the Rhodes. So many times that was our first set. The people sitting there watching us. Wait for Herbie to tune up the Rhodes. So we played the first set, and so me and Billy Hart and Julian Priester, Pepo and Jabali. So we go back to the hotel, see what's happening with Benny Maupin. So we have to get the key and get in his room because he didn't answer the door. And so we walked in the room, and the first thing we see is like a coffee table turned upside down, and the legs are broken off. He done broke the legs off this table. So we're going, and Willie, and he says, I'm in here. It's in the bathroom. So we go in the bathroom, and he's laying in the tub, and the water's freezing cold. We said, Nick, we got a gig. What are you doing? He says, I'm trying to congeal. He said, I'm trying to congeal, man.
What is he, Jello?
Yeah, right.
He's trying to come back to the session.
So anyway, we got him out, and you know, got him together, put his clothes on, and you know he carried, he had the stretch,
Yeah.
and it's his a bass clarinet, and his tenor, and so
What's the stretch?
it was like a alto. But he had
Rassan used to play that. Yeah, Rassan used to play it a lot.
Yeah.
Sax solo?
yeah. And he also had little soprano like
But
this.
there was a curve
Right up here, yeah. But the stretch like that, right? And so we get to the gig, and he sets up his horns, and we go on for the second set. But instead of going on the bandstand and picking up his horns, he lays under the piano. He's still trying to congeal. So we play the whole set while he's laying under the piano. And at some point, Jabali gets up off the drums, and he just goes out and stands in front of the bandstand and watches us play. So I asked Jabali when we got up, I said, man, what are you doing? He said, Mother, but my cymbals started moving.
You made a wise decision not to try it.
So we was booked for 6 nights. The second night, the club owner says, I don't think, I think maybe we better move the first set a little later. been 6 o'clock. I said, yeah, I know the people getting indigestion. So we started this second set, the second night, you know, the first set at 8 o'clock. And then we played 2 more nights. But before the week was over, I think the club owner, he paid us for the week.
As
you go.
Because the shit was too out for the people, man.
Wow.
He said, you know, people loved it. But he felt like we was a little too far out, you know.
I noticed you and a couple of your contemporaries are shifting your musical trajectory. You're coming away from, for you, getting away from the trumpet, but you're now keyboards, technology, and now you're producing. And time evolves, and I think now the creative channel is behind the studio now with Igmar Thomas and the Revived Big Band. How did you guys collaborate during this project? And two, how did you musically get these guys to musically get their ideas where it was just concrete from what we saw the other night or last night?
Mm-hmm. Well, Igmar, I met him when he was still in college at Berkeley. And one of the times I came through Scullers, which is a well-known club in Boston, he came to the gig and hit me up and asked for a lesson. And we got together, I gave him a lesson, and we kept in touch since. But I knew then, upon meeting him, that he was a bright light and had a original voice and would be one of the contenders and voices in years to come, which he's done and gone beyond. So since establishing that connection with him early on, then he moved to New York, and I was actually, years later, his connection with Megan Stabile when she started Revive the Live at the time, and eventually became Revive Music Group. They wanted to do a big band. So the first gig, I think it was 2010, and I kind of organized the big band and selected the players. And it was actually Igmar's first time arranging for big band. So we did some of his charts, we did some of mine, and Talib Kweli was also on the gig. So it was a great evening because it really established the idea of this genreless sort of communication in terms of the music, and that you could have a big band, which is traditionally associated with a swing style or coming out of the 30s or whatever, but to have a big band and have it engage with hip hop,
Right.
Which is not something often done. So, and from that moment, I'm so proud of Igmar to have watched him develop, because he was super nervous. I was like, bro, you're doing a good job. Just keep going. And he has really become one of my favorite arrangers of all time, and the way he leads and conducts the band now so effortlessly. So remembering that first time, how nervous he was, and to see him really step into his moment and what he's built over the past 10 plus years is quite amazing. And also shout out to Megan, such a beautiful soul, a light, a visionary. Her Instagram handle is Supreme Uniter,
Right.
and she was, because it's like she knew all these people in so many diverse corners of the industry, but was kind of like a point of contact and an intermediary between all of us, and had the vision to bring people together that you may not necessarily see on the stage. And her vision and her spirit lives on, and that felt great to be in that space, because she was very much present last night at Summer Stage. And Igmar is determined to continue that vision and what she laid out while she was here amongst us. So it was a very, very beautiful thing to be a part of. Very excited about the release of this album, which we began to record while she was here, but actually before the pandemic. So to see this project come to light and to put it out now, I'm excited for what the potential and the possibilities are once this music gets out to the world. So.
As a producer, how do you showcase the artist, or in this case the big band? How do you're navigating, you're making these ideas final, and the world gets to hear and eventually gets to see what you have put together? How do you do this?
Mm-hmm. Well, how I look at my job as a producer in any project that I'm producing is to really understand the artist's vision and to facilitate that and to do what's necessary to help that and not get in the way. But perhaps push and prod the artist in a way that will inspire them to take it to the next level and maybe get beyond even what their own vision is. But it's a delicate balance because you don't want to disturb their flow. But I want to facilitate that. So, Igmar is a very accomplished artist. I didn't need or don't need to babysit him through the process. It's my job to identify, what his strengths are, when I can make commentary as far as what may need to be redone or approached a certain way. So it's like you're kind of present, but at the same time invisible, because it's not about me. It's about his vision as an artist, and I'm basically there to try to facilitate that and to be another set of ears and to be an objective observer of what's going on and how I can best assist him to make sure that what he's arranged and what he's put together can have the greatest impact, and to make sure that that comes across on album. So,
the last couple of years I've seen Nicholas Payton kind of come back full circle to the full roots of New Orleans, meaning your mother and your father. You're singing, you're playing, and you're multifaceted now. You're playing multiple instruments. Is that part of the recharge, you staying in New Orleans and being around your element, or is that something that you knew that you were going to eventually start doing?
Yeah, I don't think I ever know what I'm going to do. And part of the beauty of being an artist is the freedom to be able to go wherever it is feels right at the moment. I don't think I necessarily knew 15 years ago that I would do a thing where I would play keyboards and trumpet at the same time. It just sort of happened organically as an experiment, as I started playing different ideas on the trumpet that were a bit harmonically unorthodox, I found it increasingly hard to find keyboardists to comp behind me and play behind me, because they would either get tripped up and try to make all my funny notes fit, or they would lay out and not know what to play, which left a hole in the music. So the idea was that, okay, if I play for myself, I'm not going to get in my own way. And that turned into me actually like developing a voice and creating a new lane. Also, I began to get bored with just being a trumpet player in my own band and taking the solo and standing on the side of the stage for 75% of the night. But the interesting thing is, like, when I started doing it, even still sometimes it's like people think I'm playing less trumpet. And I'm taking the same amount of trumpet solos oftentimes. It's just that I'm more a part of the music and playing keyboards the whole time. And that allows me to be more a part of what's unfolding on the stage. I just felt like it's boring to just be standing here after I take a solo for most of the night. So now I get to orchestrate my music in a certain way and sit in the rhythm section and really shape how my music sounds. And because it's my music, no one can necessarily determine how that's supposed to sound but me. So to be more a part of it and literally be hands-on in how my music sounds, it has been increasingly more important, especially the more personal my music has become and the more simple it's become in terms of like writing 4-bar tunes or 2-bar tunes. I think it's required me to take more direct care of how it's coming across, because sometimes it's harder for other people to understand, like, well, it's just 4 bars, you know, how are you going to make this into something? And I think because it comes from me and I know where I want it to go, it allows me to be able to affect that in a way where I don't have to talk about where I want my music to go to an artist. I can just play it, and then we can respond in kind and have a real time conversation. You know? And then when you're playing with the likes of people like Buster and Lenny, who already come out of that space, you know, they get it. So it doesn't have to be a lot of words, and we don't have to talk about it. We just do it and we rehearse it. So it was very conscious, you know, for me to go into the Blue Note for a week before we recorded, because that was basically the rehearsal. So when we got in the studio, it was just like we've already been working on this for 6 days beforehand, so everybody knew what to do. And then at that point, we can have fun with it and just let loose, because we don't have to think about it anymore. You can take your eyes off the paper and just go with the experience.
The elder experience, it does that to you. It definitely does that to you. I have to congratulate and thank you for this Black American music, because in this documenting and speaking with the musicians and even writing, you know, Duke Ellington, in an interview I read, he said he stopped using the term jazz in like 1947, 1948.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-boggling that people are still in this educational, Eurocentric world of keeping this music in a box.
Mm-hmm.
How many more people do we have to sacrifice to keep this message going out right now?
I think it's interesting because when I first started putting forth my take on jazz being a derogatory term, and I'm not the first to do it, as you spoke to. Ellington was doing this. He said he tried to get Fletcher Henderson to divorce themselves from the word in the 30s and call it Negro music. So there's a long-standing history and a tradition of artists shunning and not wanting to be associated with the word. I think perhaps I just brought it to light in an era where it was largely forgotten that this was once a part of the conversation. And it's been an interesting thing to see because, again, when I first started writing about it and putting those ideas forth, there was a lot of pushback and a lot of arguments and a lot of heated battles and discussions and so forth, to now fast forward to 10 years later, and you see artists now on their social media saying BAM and calling it Black American music. Megan and Igmar with the Revived Music Group, they were also amongst the first to put forth this thing, and they got it immediately and called it Black American music on their posters and so forth.
Even in your show, you have the Max Roach, jazz is a four-letter word,
Mm-hmm.
and he breaks down the dialogue on. It's funny how now, looking at, like you said, 10 years, we have to kind of come back and own our own art.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very important that the next generation gets this. Do you think that the next generation of musicians
I
are
see
getting
it for
this?
sure, because a lot of the younger cats that I'm seeing now, they don't use it. They don't say jazz, and that feels. I have to say that feels good, because to say how hard it was when I initially put it out, and that it's become commonplace and almost accepted now. And when you think about it, I mean, 10 years is really not a long time. And one of the hardest things to do is affect change by way of how people think, you know, because thought is very ingrained, and we're looking at 100 years of a tradition of people feeling comfortable and loving jazz. And to change that for people, oftentimes it felt like I was treasonous. And that wasn't it at all. I was just saying, like, let's save the music. This is a derogatory term. Let's get to the true essence. I'm actually trying to help save the music from itself, if you will, if at all possible. Tulane University has become the first university to eschew its jazz department for a Black American music department. I hear there are talks at New England Conservatory to do the same. So we're in a very different space now than 10 years ago when I presented these ideas. You know, we were at the height of the Obama era, and even thinking that we were over racism. No. Post-race was a part of the conversation. So for me to discuss how colonized music was felt like I was angry and railing against something that was passé. And you have to remember, like, this preceded Black Lives Matter.
Right.
So post Black Lives Matter, when the whole country and the world had to look at, we have not advanced as much as we perhaps thought, BAM took a different light, and then people began to see it like, oh, okay, he's not so crazy and angry. If he is crazy, it's not because of this. So yeah, it feels good to be alive and to still be able to see, this in real time, how it's affected and how it's changed. And because those initial years they were hard, because to feel like all, not all, but most of your peers and your community is against you, and it's hard to work through that. But again, I didn't give a fuck ultimately, and I just kept through it. And that's what you have to do as an artist. Sometimes people are not going to get it. It might take people 10, 15 years to understand what it is you're trying to put forth. You have to soldier for your vision. And I look at an artist like Thelonious Monk, he wrote 52 tunes, I think, and he played those same tunes his whole career. And a lot of the tunes that became popular and a part of the standard book, 15 years later, he had already written in the 40s and recorded, and people didn't really pay attention. And you know what? He kept playing the same tunes over and over until people got it. Same thing with Malcolm X. You don't just give one speech and say it once,
Right.
and because I've said it, now I don't have to keep repeating. No, you have to keep saying it over and over and over again until people get it. And also, you refine the message. You say it better the more you say it. I've certainly learned how to say many of the things I've said better. As you get older, I like to think I play better. There's a greater ease. I feel like I play my instrument with a greater ease now at 48 than I did at 28. And it's all about evolving and learning how to refine, learning how to be, perhaps have maximum output with the least amount of effort, the least amount of struggle in trying to do something, where you can dial something in and zero in on how to be effective, without having to try so hard to do it, and that only can come about through maturity, making mistakes, falling on your face sometimes, doing something wrong until you figure out how to dial it in, and to put things in such a way where it can perhaps have the resonate better. And and again, sometimes everybody's not going to get everything, and that has to be okay. And sometimes you move on to the next thing that people are not going to understand and deal with that struggle. And that's just the life of an artist. You can't be too attached to the outcome or how accepted something is or not. If it resonates in your body, if it's true to you, that's what you have to lead with. And feel a confidence in knowing that in my heart, this is what I should be doing right now, and this is the right thing. And I can go to sleep at night with that, to know that my spirit was in the right place, and that I presented these ideas with the hopes of changing changing thought and helping to save music. And 10 years now later, I can see that it's made a little dent, and that feels good.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the famous Blue Note Jazz Club here in the heart of Greenwich Village here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the incomparable Nicholas Payton for his time, as well as the legendary Buster Williams, as well as the great Lenny White. Also, people, support Nicholas for his upcoming record as well as tour this fall. I'd like to personally thank the staff and management here at the Blue Note for their warm hospitality. As always, please visit me online, social media, the Pace Report at Instagram, as well as Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Until next time, peace.